Original story by Twilight Rex. I want to be clear about something before I start. I'm not stupid. I don't believe in ghosts. I've never owned a Ouija board, never watched a horror movie and thought any of it was real, never once in my life looked at a dark hallway and thought something was standing in it. I need you to understand that. Otherwise, I'm just another idiot on the internet who did something he was warned not to do and got what he deserved. Kyle and I met sophomore year at Ohio State. He was in the room next to mine in the dorms, and he had this way of talking you into things that didn't feel like persuasion. It felt like you'd had the idea yourself. A party on a Tuesday, a road trip to Detroit with no plan, a weekend camping in a state park we had no permit for. Kyle would suggest it, and by the time you were already doing it, you couldn't remember deciding to say yes. He was the kind of person who made you feel boring for having boundaries. I don't mean that as a compliment. After college, he got into urban exploration, abandoned hospitals, closed down malls, decommissioned military bases. He'd post the photos online, and they were genuinely good. He had an eye for decay, places where people used to be and weren't anymore. I went into accounting. We stayed friends the way college friends do. Texts every few weeks, a call when something big happened. He called me in January and said he was going to Japan for 3 weeks and I should come. I'd been at the same firm for 4 years. I had PTO I'd never used, and my last vacation was a long weekend in Myrtle Beach that I'd spent mostly asleep. I said I'd think about it. He sent me the flight confirmation an hour later. He'd already booked my ticket. That's how it worked with Kyle. We landed at Narita on a Tuesday morning. I was running on 3 hours of broken sleep and my ears were still popping from the descent. Kyle was wide awake. He always was. I don't think I ever saw the guy look tired now that I think about it. He just didn't seem to get worn down the way normal people do. Tokyo was overwhelming in a way I wasn't ready for. The sheer density of it. Shibuya at night looked like standing inside a computer screen. Neon running up every surface, crowds moving in patterns I couldn't predict, sound coming from directions I couldn't identify. I couldn't read a single sign, couldn't follow a single conversation happening around me. My phone's translation app was useless half the time, and Kyle's Japanese was limited to pointing and saying "sumimasen" before switching to English. We did the tourist circuit, Sensoji Temple, where the incense smoke was so thick it caught in my throat. Akihabara, 8 floors of electronics and anime I didn't recognize. A ramen place in Shinjuku where we sat at a counter barely wide enough for our elbows, and the broth was so rich it tasted like someone had been cooking it for days. I held up 2 fingers and ordered 2 bowls. The waiter paused, looked at me, then at the empty space at the counter beside me where Kyle was sitting. He didn't say anything, just nodded slowly. Kyle said he'd already eaten at the station. It was good. The first 4 days were the best time I'd had in years. Kyle was easy company. He knew when to talk and when to shut up. He'd find things I would have walked past, a shrine tucked between 2 office buildings, a vending machine selling hot corn soup, a cat sleeping on a temple wall that let me scratch behind its ears. I took a selfie of us at Meiji Shrine. Kyle threw up a peace sign. On day 5, the itinerary shifted. Kyle started talking about heading north, Tohoku region, the rural interior, up past Sendai toward the mountains. He said he'd seen photos of abandoned villages online. Whole communities emptied out over the last 30 years as young people moved to Tokyo and Osaka, leaving their parents' houses to rot. The real Japan, he said. Not the postcard. I should have pushed back. I didn't. That was the dynamic, and it had been the dynamic for 7 years. Kyle led. I followed. He had the ideas. I had the willingness to go along with them. We rented a car from a place near Sendai Station. small white Toyota that smelled like air freshener and cigarette smoke. The guy at the rental counter spoke decent English and gave us a map with tourist routes highlighted in yellow. Kyle folded it up and put it in the glove box. He already knew where he was going. I drove. Kyle rode shotgun. He wanted music, so I plugged the O cable into his phone for him and he picked a playlist. Some mix of lo-fi stuff and Japanese city pop that actually fit the drive. The countryside opened up fast once we left the expressway. Rice paddies stretched flat in every direction, pale green, broken up by clusters of dark trees and the occasional farmhouse with a blue tile roof. The mountains were hazy in the distance. We passed through towns that were barely towns. A post office, a konbini, 3 houses, then nothing again for 20 minutes. The villages got smaller. Some of them had more empty houses than occupied ones. You could tell which ones were abandoned. The gardens overgrown past the windows, the wood going gray, roof tiles sliding off. Nobody had pulled them down. Nobody had moved in. They just sat there, slowly falling apart while the occupied houses next door kept their gardens trimmed. Kyle pointed out every one. He was leaning forward in his seat, hands on the dash, scanning both sides of the road like he was looking for something specific. I glanced over at him once during a long, straight stretch. He'd fallen asleep against the window. The sun was coming through the glass, and for a second, he looked pale. I looked back at the road. When I checked again, he was awake, watching the scenery, same as before. We stopped at a roadside shrine about an hour into the mountains. Small stone torii gate, a little wooden offering box, moss growing on everything. I took a selfie of us with the gate behind us. Kyle pulled a face as the shutter clicked. I was hungry. We found a rest stop with a small noodle shop. I ordered 2 bowls of soba. Kyle said he wasn't hungry. "You never eat when we travel," I said. "Plain food," he said, still sitting heavy. We'd been in Japan for 5 days. The plain food excuse was 4 days past its expiration, but Kyle was thin and had always been thin, and I'd never once seen him eat a full meal in the 7 years I'd known him, so I didn't push it. I ate both bowls and we got back in the car. That's when Kyle brought it up. He was scrolling his phone in the passenger seat while I drove, and he turned the screen toward me. A forum post. Japanese text with a rough English translation underneath. "Hitori kakirenbo," he said. "One man hide and seek. It's this ritual game. Big in Japanese internet culture. You do it alone in an empty building at 3 a.m. with a stuffed doll and some rice and a knife. It's like the Japanese version of Bloody Mary, except people actually freak out doing it." I glanced at the screen and looked back at the road. Okay. Urbex guys do it sometimes. Go into an abandoned building, set up cameras, do the ritual, see what happens. Most of the videos are fake. But the Japanese forums, the original ones, some of those posts are wild. People saying things followed them home. People saying the game doesn't end when you think it does. And you want to do this. I want you to do it. That's the point. It's one player. I'll be right outside. Think of it like a dare. You go in, do the steps, say the words, come out. 20 minutes, we film it. You've got the best story anyone at your office has ever heard. I told him it was stupid. He said of course it was stupid, that was the whole point. I told him I didn't believe in any of that stuff. He said perfect, then there was nothing to be afraid of. I told him no. He kept scrolling the forum, reading posts out loud, translating the bad English into worse English, making it sound fun and dumb and harmless. By the time the GPS lost signal, I'd stopped saying no. I hadn't said yes, but with Kyle, not saying anything was the same thing. The road narrowed. 2 lanes became 1.5, then 1. The GPS lost signal. Kyle said he knew the way, and I believed him because Kyle always knew the way. We turned off the paved road onto a gravel track that wound up through cedar forest. The trees closed in overhead. The light went from bright afternoon to something filtered and green. The gravel crunched under the tires and branches scraped along the roof, and I remember thinking this was the kind of road you don't drive down without a reason. Kyle had a reason. He just hadn't told me what it was yet. The village appeared all at once when the forest opened up. A cluster of maybe 15 houses at the base of a steep hillside, arranged along a single, unpaved road. Half of them were clearly abandoned, doors hanging open, windows dark, weeds growing through the foundations. The other half looked like they'd been abandoned more recently. Curtains still in the windows. A bicycle leaning against a wall with flat tires. Nobody was around. No cars, no people, no sound except the engine ticking as I turned it off. Kyle was already out of the car, standing in the road, looking up the hill. He didn't reach for his camera. He just stood there. I sat in the car for another minute. My stomach was tight, and I told myself it was the soba, or the winding road, or the altitude. I told myself a lot of things on this trip. Most of them were wrong. I got out, followed Kyle up the road. We walked the village for an hour that afternoon. Kyle moved through it like he had a map, not exploring, shopping. He'd glance at a house, shake his head, move on, pass an overgrown garden, look at the front door, keep walking. The houses were all the same basic shape. Single story, dark wood, sliding doors. Traditional Japanese farmhouses built for families that didn't live here anymore. Some of them still had shoes in the entryway, curtains in the windows, a calendar on a wall showing a month from 2014. Kyle stopped in front of a house at the far end of the village, up the slope where the forest pressed in close. It was set back from the road, overgrown hedge blocking the front. The sliding door was off its track, leaning against the frame at an angle. "This one," he said. I asked how he knew. He said it had the right layout. He pulled up the instructions on his phone. Hitori Kakarenbo, one man hide and seek. He read the rules out loud. Get a stuffed doll with limbs. Remove the stuffing. Replace it with uncooked rice and a piece of yourself, fingernail, hair. Sew it shut with red thread. Name it. At 3 a.m., fill the bathtub with water. Hold the doll, say its name, and "You are the first it" 3 times. Stab the doll. Say, "Now you are it." Put the doll in the water. Turn off every light. Close your eyes. Count to 10. Find the doll. To end the game, fill your mouth with salt water. Find the doll, spit on it. Say, "I win" 3 times. I laughed. Kyle didn't. "Tonight," he said. "You do it alone. I'll wait outside." I told him no. He looked at me the way he always looked at me when I said no, not disappointed, not annoyed, just waiting. Because he knew I'd change my mind. I always changed my mind. I don't know why I said yes. That's not true. "I do know," Kyle asked, and I've never been able to say no to Kyle. That's the whole problem. We drove 40 minutes to the nearest convenience store. Tinny J-pop on the speakers, a bored kid behind the counter. I bought a stuffed bear the size of my hand from a bin near the register, a bag of rice, red thread, and a sewing needle from a small craft section, a box of salt, a kitchen knife from the household aisle. The cashier rang everything up. We drove back. Kyle was quiet. I was running through the steps in my head, telling myself this was stupid, telling myself nothing was going to happen, telling myself I could quit any time I wanted. At 2:45 a.m., I was sitting in the car outside the house with a stuffed bear in my lap, cutting it open with the kitchen knife. The stuffing came out in white clumps. I packed the rice in, handful by handful, pressing it down, feeling the weight of it change from soft to dense. I bit a fingernail off my left thumb and pushed it into the rice, sewed the opening shut with the red thread. My stitches were bad. The thread pulled through the fabric in uneven loops, bright red against the brown fur. I named it. I don't want to say what I named it. The forums said the name mattered, and I picked one without thinking, and I'm not putting it in writing. Kyle was leaning against the car. "I'll be right here," he said. "You'll be fine." I went inside. The house smelled like mold and old wood and something underneath that I couldn't identify. The tatami was soft under my feet, rotting in places, and I could feel the floor flex where the boards underneath had gone bad. Before doing anything else, I mixed salt into a cup of tap water from my bottle and left it by the front door. My exit plan. Then I found the bathroom in the back. Small room, tile walls, a deep Japanese-style tub made of some kind of stone or concrete. I turned the tap. Nothing for a few seconds, then a groan in the pipes, then water. Brown, rusty. It smelled like iron. I let it fill. The sound of the water hitting the empty tub was loud in the silence. I stood there holding the doll and waiting and trying not to think about the fact that I was alone in an abandoned house in the mountains of northern Japan, about to play a game that a translated forum post told me not to play. The tub filled. I held the doll over the water. "You are the first it." My voice sounded wrong in the empty house. Too flat. No echo where there should have been echo. "You are the first it. You are the first it." I stabbed the knife into the doll's stomach. The rice shifted inside. A sound like something adjusting its weight. "Now you are it." I placed the doll in the water. It floated for a second, then the rice pulled it down. It sank slowly, the brown fur darkening, the red thread trailing upward. I turned off my phone flashlight. Total dark. I closed my eyes. I counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Something changed. My ears popped. The house had been quiet before. Now it felt like something was holding its breath. 8, 9, 10. I opened my eyes. The dark was wrong. Not the dark from before. This was darker than an unlit room in the middle of the night should be. I turned on my phone flashlight. The beam went maybe 4 feet and stopped. Not faded. Stopped. Like the dark was something solid and the light couldn't push through it. I went to the bathtub. The doll wasn't there. The water was black, not brown anymore. Black. I could see my phone light reflecting off the surface, but nothing underneath. I bumped the edge of the tub with my knee. The water didn't move. Completely still, like it had frozen without turning to ice. Something grabbed my ankle. A hand. Cold. Strong. Fingers closing around the bone and squeezing. I kicked and my foot connected with nothing. No resistance. Just air. But the grip released and I stumbled backward into the hallway, my back hitting the wall hard. I froze. I didn't swing the light around. I just held it, aimed at the floorboards, barely breathing, waiting. Nothing came. I pulled up my pant leg, 4 red marks on the skin around my ankle, each one the width of a finger, pressed deep enough to leave indentations. They were already fading. I almost left. I almost ran out the front door and told Kyle to drive, but the forums were specific. You have to end the game. If you don't end it, it doesn't stop. I found the doll in the hallway, not on the floor, standing upright, propped against the wall, facing me. The knife was still buried in its stomach. Rice was leaking from the seam, forming a small pile on the rotten tatami. I grabbed the doll. The cup of salt water was where I'd left it by the front door. I took a mouthful, bitter and sharp. I spit it on the doll. "I win," my voice was shaking. "I win! I win!" The words came back wrong. Too many of them. like the echo was off by half a second. Then the pressure dropped. The dark thinned. The house was just a house. I grabbed my bag and ran. Kyle was outside. Exactly where I'd left him. Same position. He hadn't moved. His hands were at his sides, his posture relaxed, his face calm. He smiled when he saw me. "How was it?" I was shaking so hard I couldn't get the car key into the ignition. Kyle sat in the passenger seat and watched me fumble with it. He didn't help. He didn't ask if I was okay. Normally, he would have made a joke, something dumb to cut the tension. He didn't. He just waited, calm and still, while I cranked the engine and pulled onto the gravel road with my headlights cutting through the trees. My hands were shaking on the wheel the whole drive back. Kyle sat beside me in the dark and didn't say a word. I told myself he was just being quiet because he could see I was rattled. I told myself that's what friends do. Give you space. I didn't look at him. I just focused on the road, grateful for how perfectly still and quiet he was being. He didn't even shift in his seat. I woke up the next morning and something was wrong with my neck. Not sore. Wrong. The muscles on the left side were locked tight, like I'd slept in a position my body didn't agree with. But it was more than that. My whole left side felt colder than my right. Not by much, just enough to notice. Like standing next to a window that's open a crack in winter, except there was no window and the hostel room was warm. Kyle was already up. Dressed, bag packed, standing by the door. He looked good. Better than good. Relaxed in a way I hadn't seen on him the whole trip. The low-level tension he'd been carrying since we landed, the restlessness, the constant forward motion, was gone. He looked like a man who'd finished something. "Sleep okay?" he asked. "Not really." "Adrenaline," he said. "It'll pass." We took a bus to Sendai. Kyle wanted to see the temples. The first sighting happened that evening. I was in the hostel bathroom, shared floor, 4 stalls, a row of sinks with mirrors above them. I was washing my hands. I looked up at my reflection, and in the mirror behind me, the shower curtain on the last stall had a gap. Through the gap, I could see something in the tub. It was crouched, low like an animal on its haunches. Dark. I couldn't make out details because the bathroom light was behind me and the stall was in shadow, but the shape was wrong. The head was tilted sideways at an angle that would mean a broken neck on a person. And it was looking at me through that gap. I was certain of it. I spun around. The curtain was closed. I crossed the bathroom in 3 steps and ripped it open. Empty tub, white porcelain, a drain with a rust stain. But the curtain was still swinging. I was holding it still, and the other end was swinging on its rings, the metal clicking against the rod. Something had moved it. Just now. Seconds ago. I went back to the room. My hands were shaking. Kyle was sitting on his bunk, scrolling his phone. I told him what I saw. He looked up. "Jet lag," he said. "Plus, no sleep. Your brain fills in shapes when you're tired. It's called pareidolia." He went back to his phone. That night I was walking back to the room from the vending machine. The hostel hallway was empty. I was looking at my phone. I felt breath on the back of my neck, hot, close, like a mouth an inch from my skin. I could feel the warmth of it across the top of my spine where my hairline ended. I turned around. Empty hallway. I didn't tell Kyle about that one. The next day, we took the bullet train south toward Tokyo. I sat by the window. I was watching the countryside scroll past at 200 miles an hour. Rice paddies and power lines and towns that appeared and vanished in seconds. I focused on my reflection in the window glass. My face was pale. I looked tired. Behind my reflection, on the other side of the glass, on the outside of a train moving at 200 miles an hour. Something was pressed against the window. A dark shape flattened against the glass. I jerked my head back from the glass, looked at the actual window. Nothing. Blurred countryside. Blue sky. I reached out and touched the glass where the shape had been. Ice cold, not cool, cold. A cold spot the size of a person's torso on a window in the middle of July. The rest of the glass was warm from the sun. That one spot was cold enough to make my fingertips ache. I pulled my hand back and sat on it. I looked around to see if anyone else had noticed. Kyle was reading something on his phone across the aisle. A kid, 2 rows up, had turned around in his seat, kneeling on the cushion. He stared for a long time. Then, his mother pulled him down and he didn't look back. At Sendai Station, I bought 2 bento boxes for the second leg of the trip. Kyle said he wasn't hungry. I ate both. Kyle took a photo of me at a shrine in Matsushima. We'd stopped for a few hours to walk the coast. He used my phone because his was almost dead. I smiled. He tapped the shutter. He looked at the screen for maybe 2 seconds. His thumb moved fast. "Lens glitch," he said. "Camera didn't focus right. We'll get another one later." He slipped my phone into his pocket instead of handing it back. We didn't get another one, and when I got my phone back an hour later, the photo was gone from my gallery. I checked the recently deleted folder. Gone from there too. I didn't think about it again until that night. Couldn't sleep. I opened my phone and went through the day's photos. At the shrine, I'd taken a few of my own before Kyle took the one of me. In one of them, a wide shot of the lanterns and the coastline, there was something in the background. Between 2 stone lanterns, a figure. Caught mid-movement, limbs at angles that didn't work. Head turned too far around on the neck, mouth open, wide. The figure was blurred, but not like motion blur and not like the camera missed focus. Everything else in the photo was sharp. The trees, the stone, the water. Whatever was in that frame didn't photograph right. The image itself was wrong. Not the camera, not the focus. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. The physical symptoms were getting worse. The cold on my left side was constant now. My neck was locked tight enough that I couldn't turn my head all the way left without pain. And the feeling of being watched had changed. It wasn't behind me anymore. It was beside me, close, keeping pace when I walked, stopping when I stopped. I knew exactly where it was at all times. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it the way you feel someone standing behind you in a line. At the Tokyo hotel, the woman at the front desk handed me 1 key card. I asked for 2. She looked at me, looked at her screen, looked back at me. 1 key. I started to point at Kyle beside me, but he shook his head and waved it off. "Budget place," he said. "They're strict on plastic. Just take it, I'll stick with you." I took the single key card. The room had 2 beds. Kyle said he was going for a walk. I sat on my bed in the quiet room and tried to convince myself that everything was fine. The neck pain was from the hostel pillow. The cold was poor circulation. The photos were compression artifacts. The train window was a temperature differential. Every single thing that had happened had a rational explanation. I just didn't believe any of them anymore. People started avoiding me. I noticed it on the subway the first morning in Tokyo. I got on at Shinjuku and stood by the doors. The car was crowded, but the space around me stayed empty. Not a big gap, just enough. The woman next to me shifted her bag to her other shoulder and took a half step away. A salaryman in a gray suit looked at me, then looked past me, then moved to the next car at the next stop. An old man on the platform at Ueno stared at me from across the tracks. Not the casual glance of someone waiting for a train. He was looking at me the way you'd look at a car accident. I stared back. He didn't blink. The train came and I lost sight of him. It wasn't just strangers on the street. Our last night in the Sendai hostel, a guy in the bunk below mine had packed his things at 2 a.m. and moved to a couch in the lobby. He wouldn't look at me. He just muttered something about a bad feeling on this side of the room and left. Not Kyle's side. My side. Kyle was with me through all of it, walking beside me, pointing at things, talking about where to eat. He didn't notice the reactions, or he didn't care. That first night in the Tokyo hotel, I couldn't sleep. 2 beds, a window overlooking a side street, the glow of a vending machine. I lay on my back, staring at the ceiling. Something pressed down on the mattress beside me. Not a vibration, not the building settling. Deliberate, slow weight pushing the mattress down about a foot from my hip, like someone sitting on the edge of the bed. I could feel myself tilting toward the dip, my body rolling slightly on the slope of the depression. I didn't move, I didn't breathe. I lay there and felt the weight beside me for what must have been 30 seconds. Then it lifted. Not gradually, all at once. The mattress sprung back flat and the room was still. I lay there for a long time after that. The room was dark. The vending machine glow from the window put a faint blue wash across the ceiling. I rolled over slowly. In the corner where the wall met the ceiling, something was crouched. It was pressed into the corner the way a spider sits in the angle of a web. Limbs bent backward at the joints, folded into a space too small for a body, fingers and toes gripping the wall and ceiling where they met. Its head was upside down, chin pointing at the ceiling, face aimed at me from across the room. It was smiling. The mouth was too wide. It took up the bottom third of the face, and it was open, and the corners went past where a jawline should stop. The folded limbs, the inverted head, the mouth. It moved. Fast. 1 second, it was in the corner. Then, it was above me. I squeezed my eyes shut. My whole body locked. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I could feel the cold coming off it. The same cold that had been on my left side for days, concentrated now into a point directly above my chest. I don't know how long I lay there. It could have been 10 seconds or 10 minutes. When I opened my eyes, the corner was empty. The ceiling was empty. The room was still. But directly above my bed, on the white ceiling, there was a wet mark, a handprint, a palm pressed into the plaster hard enough to leave moisture. It was still damp. It had been right above me. I didn't wake Kyle. I didn't speak. I lay there with my muscles locked and my eyes on the damp plaster until the sun came up. The next morning, Kyle acted completely normal, packing his bag, checking his phone, talking about what to do that day. "Did anything follow us from that house?" I asked. Kyle didn't look up from his bag. "You're jet-lagged, man. It was a stupid game. Nothing happened. There was something in this room last night. On the ceiling. It was above me." Kyle stopped packing. He looked at me. His expression was perfectly blank. What did it look like? Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "Should we leave?" Not, "What the hell are you talking about?" He wanted to know what it looked like. I pointed at the ceiling. The handprint was right there, faded but visible. Kyle glanced up at it. "Condensation," he said. "These hotels run the AC too cold." He went back to packing. I told Kyle I needed some time alone. He didn't argue. I went to an internet cafe in Akihabara and searched for Hitori Kakurenbo. The English results were mostly YouTube videos and Reddit threads. People filming themselves doing the ritual and nothing happening. Lots of comments calling it fake. The Japanese forums were different. I ran them through Google Translate, and the English came out broken, but the tone was clear. People weren't joking around. The posts were short and specific. Ended the game correctly. Salt water 3 times. Something is still in my apartment. Don't play in a building where someone else has played. If you ended the game and it's still here, you didn't end the game. One post, older than the others, no replies. The game doesn't summon anything. It invites what's already there to follow you home. I read that line 4 times. I thought about the house Kyle had walked straight to, the way he knew the layout, the way he knew the bathtub worked. That evening, I tried to show Kyle what I'd found. He was sitting on his bed, scrolling his phone. He listened. He nodded. Then he said we should go see Akihabara at night. The lights were supposed to be incredible. Kyle, I'm serious. You scared yourself in an old house, and now you're reading scary stories on the internet. Come on, let's go do something. I didn't go. Kyle left. That second night, I lay in bed and watched Kyle in the other bed. He was on his back, arms at his sides, eyes closed, completely still. I watched his chest. It didn't rise. I watched his eyelids. They didn't flutter. I listened for the small sounds a sleeping person makes, the shift in breathing rhythm, the rustle of sheets, the unconscious movements. Nothing. He was lying there like a body on a table, close enough to pass at a glance. Wrong the second you actually looked. I watched him for a long time. The cold was constant. The feeling of being watched was so specific I could have drawn a line from my chest to the exact point in the room where it was coming from. 2 things were wrong in this room: the thing I couldn't see, and the friend I could. I lay awake until morning. Last day in Japan. Flight home tomorrow morning. Kyle went out to get coffee. I was sitting on the bed in the hotel room with the curtains closed and the lights off because the dark felt safer than the light. I picked up my phone. I don't know why. I wasn't looking for anything. I just needed something to do with my hands. I opened my camera roll. The first photo was from Narita Airport, me holding up my boarding pass, grinning. The composition was wrong, too much space on the right side of the frame. My arm was extended at an angle meant to fit 2 people in the shot. There was nobody beside me. I scrolled. Meiji Shrine. Me in front of the torii gate. Arm extended, phone held wide. Empty space to my left where someone should have been standing. I was smiling. The roadside shrine in the mountains. Me with the stone gate behind me. Same wide-angle framing. Same empty space. Same smile aimed at nothing. The ramen place in Shinjuku. I'd taken a photo of the counter. 2 bowls of ramen, 2 sets of chopsticks, 1 seat occupied. I scrolled faster. The car. A selfie taken from the driver's seat, arm stretched across to the passenger side. I was smiling at the camera. The passenger seat was empty. Bare fabric, no one in it, sunlight coming through the window and hitting nothing. Sendai. Me at a temple. Dead space, alone. Matsushima, me on the coast, alone. The abandoned village. Me standing on the dirt road with the houses behind me. Alone. In every single photo from that village, and there were a dozen of them, I was the only person in frame. 2 weeks of vacation photos, temples, food, scenery, selfies. In every single one of them, I was alone. Arm extended to fit 2 people, space left for a second person, smiling at someone who wasn't there. I put the phone down, picked it up, put it down again. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I called Kyle. Not the Kyle who'd gone out for coffee. I called Kyle's real number, the one saved in my contacts under his full name. Kyle Brewer, area code 614, Columbus, Ohio. It rang 4 times. Hello? His voice was thick, groggy, the voice of someone pulled out of sleep. "Kyle, it's me." "Dude, it's like 4 a.m. What's going on? Are you in Japan right now?" Silence. Then, "What? No, I'm in bed. I'm in my apartment. What are you talking about?" "You're not in Japan. You went to Japan by yourself, man. You told me you wanted to go solo. You've been sending me photos for 2 weeks. Are you okay? You sound weird." "I've been sending you photos?" "Yeah, temples and food and stuff. You texted me yesterday, said you were having a great time, said you wished I was there." I opened my text thread with Kyle. The real Kyle. The texts were there. Photos of temples, shrines, food, captions I didn't remember writing. "Wish you were here. You'd love this place. Having the best time." All sent from my phone. I didn't remember sending any of them. "Kyle," I said, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer me honestly." "Okay. Did you tell me to come to Japan in January? Did you call me every night for a week until I finally broke down and bought a ticket? Man, I haven't talked to you since New Year's. You texted me out of nowhere in February saying you'd booked a solo trip to Japan. I said that sounded cool. That's it." I hung up. I sat on the bed in the hotel room. The flashbacks came in order. The drive to the village. I was behind the wheel. The O cable was plugged into my phone because there was no one else's phone to plug in. The music was my playlist. The passenger seat was empty, sunlight hitting bare fabric. No one was sleeping against the window. No one was reading directions. I drove for 3 hours through the mountains in silence, alone, following a route I'd found myself. The hostel in Sendai. 1 key, 1 guest. The receptionist didn't argue because there was nothing to argue about. The convenience store. Midnight. 1 man buying a stuffed animal, a bag of rice, red thread, a needle, salt, and a kitchen knife. The cashier's look, not confusion, concern. A man standing alone at a register at midnight with the ingredients for a ritual and nobody beside him. The house at 3 a.m. I walked in alone. I did the ritual alone. I ended the game alone. And when I came out, shaking, barely able to stand, I saw Kyle standing outside in the dark, waiting for me, smiling, perfectly still, not shifting his weight, not rubbing his arms against the cold, not breathing, just standing there the way something stands when it doesn't have a body that gets uncomfortable. It had been there, at the house, before I arrived. It had been there because it lived there, and it needed me to come inside and play the game willingly. So it put on a face I trusted, a voice I'd follow anywhere. It spent 2 weeks walking beside me, talking to me, laughing at my jokes, making me feel like I was with my best friend. It sat in the passenger seat and pretended to sleep. The thing that dared me to play wasn't my friend. My friend was in Columbus, Ohio, sleeping in his apartment 6,000 miles away. He'd been there the whole time. He never came to Japan. He never booked my ticket. He never planned the itinerary or found the village or picked the house. I did all of that, alone, following something I couldn't see that walked beside me and spoke with a familiar voice. I looked up from my phone. Across the hotel room, Kyle's bed was made. Not slept in and remade. Made. Tight corners, smooth sheets, pillow centered. The way housekeeping leaves it when no one has used it. There was no suitcase beside it. I went to the bathroom. 1 toothbrush, 1 towel used, hung on the rack. 1 set of toiletries on the counter. I'd been alone in this room for 3 nights. I'd been alone in every room for 2 weeks. Every conversation I'd had with Kyle, every joke, every argument about the itinerary, every "you'll be fine" and "it's just jet lag" and "nothing happened." I'd been talking to something that wore my best friend's face, so I'd follow it into an abandoned house in the mountains and play a game I should never have played. I didn't play hide and seek with a doll. I played it with the thing that dared me to go inside. And when I said I win, it was already standing behind me in the dark, wearing Kyle's smile, waiting to follow me home. It's quiet in here now. Kyle, the thing that called itself Kyle, hasn't come back from getting coffee. I don't think it needs to pretend anymore. I think the game is over and it won. Whatever it wanted when it put on that face and led me to that house, it got. I have a flight home in 9 hours. I'm going to get on it because I don't know what else to do. I can feel it. Watching me type this. It followed me out of that house. It followed me across 3 cities and a bullet train and 2 weeks of a trip I took alone. And tomorrow, it's going to follow me onto a plane and across the Pacific and into my apartment in Ohio, and it is never going to leave. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it wants. I don't know why it chose me. Kyle, the real Kyle, called me back an hour later, asked me if I was okay. I told him I was fine. The same words the thing wearing his face told me every day for 2 weeks. I'm fine. Everything's fine. That's it from me. I'm Rex. Thanks for your time tonight. Subscribe and ring the bell if you want the next one. Comments are always open. Good night.